Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fun but expensive card game. When a playset of lightning storms and other staples cost $100 a piece, how are you even supposed to afford it? Rather than taking the reckless sealed only route and relying on luck only, I'm going to be taking a much more practical approach. Using my knowledge of the market and just $10 a week, my goal is to climb the competitive ladder and eventually top a YCS or Nationals. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! On a Budget. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! On a Budget. So it's been a very long time since the last episodes, but I've decided to come back and finish the series out. So yeah, I've been really lazy with this series, so that's why you haven't seen anything for the last couple of months. And Miscellaneousaurus also got hit to 1, which is also pretty demotivating, but mostly it was just my fault because I was really lazy with the series. But I've decided to come back and film the last 2 episodes of this series, which means that next episode is actually going to be the finale. I figured that it should just be a solid 10 episode series, and we'll finish it out then. So maybe we'll come back for season 2 at some point with a completely different deck, maybe like Budget Drytron, or I was thinking of like Floanderies, or something weird like that. It'll be definitely something different, not Dinosaur, if I do decide to come back at some point for a season 2. But yeah, so for today's episode, I've decided to go with a couple of brand new cards, especially because I've decided to increase the budget so that there's a total of $150 for the entire series throughout it. So today we actually had a $40 budget, and I decided to just do it for episode 9 and 10, just combine them basically, the budget, so that we are good to go for the last 2 episodes. So I do want to mention something that appears in today's episode that's not actually in the final cut, which is 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. I was just experimenting around this card. This was basically another copy of like Morella that you could use on your turn when going first or going second. Mostly when going second, you can activate it, send the copy of Sorrel's End to the graveyard, and then you can use it to target your own baby, your own petite, and pop a card in your opponent's field. And then you can play, which is really cool. It was a really cool idea, but it was honestly just like an experimental piece, and this is not going to be making it to the final draft list, but it will appear in today's episode because I did record the game a couple of weeks ago and I wasn't too sure about the format or what I would do. But yeah, also another card that might appear, I don't remember if it does, is Bujinki Amaterasu. This was just a really cool card that like helps recycle Miscellaneousaurus, so I thought it was really cool, but I think that there's better ways to do it in this deck, and you'll see those as we get to the cards that I've officially decided on to use our budget on for today's episode. So I wanted to start today's budget with 2 copies of Animador Archosaur. We actually never invested into this card because they were always expensive until the tins got released. So now that they're pretty cheap, obviously we can pick up 2 copies of this. It's really good. You probably don't want to play 3 just because it clogs your hands, but it is really cool, especially because you can summon this off of Miscellaneousaurus just by banishing this. So it's like a crazy 1-card combo. There's a 1-card combo with just Solating Ovi Raptor that you can use this and then still end a Conductor Tyranno, which is pretty nice. So the deck has like a 1-card combo. It's not like great, but it definitely does the job sometimes. The next card we have in our list is also a level 1 monster, and it's Nemesis Keystone, which I think that we should talk about later once we get towards the extra deck. So I'm going to put it here, and we'll readdress that in a minute. Next, we also have the Scrap Engine, because this actually got released after the fact as well. And then obviously we have a copy of Scrap Chimera, because, this deck got released in gold rarity, so you might as well invest into the copies of the gold cards. Plus, they're pretty cheap, and you can actually do a lot with them, which you'll have to see maybe if we do a combo tutorial later on in the video. Next, I got a card that was actually really, really good this format, both against this deck in the mirror match or against other decks, and that is 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. This card is insane this format, so I think that we're going to find a way to fit this either in our main deck or our side deck, and this card's actually just like insane. So it stops like the adventure lines, and it also stops like Dragon Link and PK. And a little bit of Prank Kids if they open with Roxy's. It's not very good against that deck, but it definitely does something. So I figured that this card should be in the list somewhere, and we will find a place to put it in. With that note, we also have invested in 3 copies of Forbidden Chalice. These are like actually like mildly expensive for commons. Like every common card of this is like $2 a piece, so the set's like $6. They used to be a little bit more expensive. I think they used to be $3 a piece, but they went down over the last couple of weeks, which is pretty nice. But yeah, randomly like expensive common. If you have like a bunch of these laying around like I do, go like get rid of them because they're actually kind of worth something. The last card that we have in our list is also an expensive common, which is 3 copies of Token Collector, for the same reason as the Adventure Engine, but this also has added synergy with this deck because you obviously generate tokens with your own engine and it destroys the tokens, which triggers Lost World, which is actually really funny. So this plus any dinosaur plus Lost World is actually like a combo, which is actually really funny. So it actually adds like consistency to our list as well as being able to break our opponent's board, which is really funny. Also, it's a level 4 monster, which helps make rank 4s, which actually can come up. Moving on into the extra deck cards that we've invested, we have invested into 1 copy of Evil Zardolka. We never picked up this card because it was like $10 when it was like a secret rare or super rare or whatever before the gold preprint. So yeah, but now we can definitely do that, so it's really nice. We have also invested into Gallant Granite, which is also really funny because this searches Nemesis Keystone. Technically it can also search Nibiru, but we don't have one. But yeah, basically you just search the Nemesis Keystone and then you can summon it from your hand by putting the Miscellaneousaurus back on the top of your deck. And then you can like link this off and do other stuff with this. This plus the Scrap Wyvern, which we'll get to in just a minute, makes Appaloosa, which is pretty funny as well. Then for Link monsters, we have a Scrap Wyvern, Appaloosa, and Frame Lord Lambda. So Lambda was actually pretty expensive, but now that it has the gold print, we can just like throw this into the list, especially because it's a generic Link too, which is really nice. And then it can protect some of our combo lines in some scenarios when we make this dude, and then we just kind of sit on him with a Gamma in hand, then we can negate like our opponent's hand traps, which is actually pretty cool. Similarly, we can do that with Appaloosa if we invest a couple of more monsters into this card, so it's pretty nice. This is also probably the most standalone expensive card in the deck. It's like $13 or something like that. And then we also have Scrap Wyvern, which is able to make a lot of really good plays. I think by itself it turns into like a rank, or not a rank 4, but like it turns into Appaloosa just like on its own, so it's like really good. And then the last card in our deck, unfortunately I don't have the lower rarity of this card. I was gonna go out and buy it, but I have the highest rarity version of this card, which we're going to have to use because the tournament that we're going to be playing for in the final episode is tomorrow. And that is Naturia Beast. And so yeah, I should mention this is the dual terminal copy. It's like $50 to something, but the card is like $2 or $3, something like that. I just don't have access to one right now, and I'm not going to be able to order one in time. So we're going to have to use the highest rarity version of this card for that reason. So yeah. Alright, with that said, those are all the cards we've invested in today's video, and for next week's video in fact, so it's gonna be a pretty crazy ride. We're going to go ahead and show you guys the deck list. Alright, so moving on to the deck list for today's video. This is obviously pretty close to a standardized list, I guess, except we're missing a couple consistency pieces, but yeah. So we have 3 copies of Soul Eating Ovi Raptor with 2 copies of Inimidor Narcosaur and the 1 copy of Miscellaneousaurus. This 3-to-1 ratio is pretty nice. I mean, obviously, if Miss was at more than 3 copies, then we would, or more than 1 copy rather, we would definitely play it, especially if it was at more than 3 copies, but obviously it's not. Then we have the Scrap Engine, so 2 Raptors and a Chimera, the ones that we invested in this weekend. Next card in the list is 2 copies of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. I don't think there's much to explain about this. We could play Coatless in place of this, but I think that these are fine. And then for the one of dinosaurs, we have Giant Rex, Dino Pankratops, and a Petita Ranodon, which also leads into the next set of monsters, which is 3 copies of Baby Cerosaurus, which I think that you actually run through all 3 during the combo, but we'll have to get to the combo towards the end of the deck profile. And then our honorary dinosaur monster, Nemesis Keystone, to shuffle back our Miscellaneousaurus. It's actually really good because also when it's banished, it can return to your hand, so you can banish this and Rex for your pill, and then this goes back to your hand for the next turn, and then you can basically just infinitely recycle Miscellaneousaurus every single turn, as long as you're able to banish this dude off of pill and stuff like that, which is pretty neat. Next, we have 3 copies of Fossil Dig to obviously search any of our pieces. Most of the time, this is probably going to be searching us the Miscellaneousaurus, since we're technically playing 4 copies of it with this, but it also can search, obviously, Baby Ceratosaurus, Scrap Raptor in some scenarios, and Ovi Raptor. Then we have 2 copies of Double Evolution Pill. We always want to search this off of the Archosaur, so it makes sense to play 2. Then for the best field spell that we currently have access to, obviously, 3 Lost World and 1 Terraforming 2. That's 27 cards so far, which means that we have 13 slots for non-engine cards. So we are going to be playing the 3 copies of Sci-Frame Gear Gamma and the 1 copy of Driver that we got towards the beginning of this series. And then a card that's pretty good this format that I was kind of upset about investing in this card towards the beginning of the series, but 2 copies of Ghost Spell. This card's actually pretty good this format, especially because you can hit a lot of really cool cards. So I think that it's better than Ogre, especially because we already invested into these, so we might as well be playing them. And then we have the 2 copies of Lancia, 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, and 3 copies of Forbidden Chalice. So the reason I've chosen these cards is to basically counteract the Scythe lock. Ghost Bell can hit like DPE and like really cool stuff like that. Cosmic Cyclone can hit Scythe as well as just other back row in general. You can also hit Fateful Adventure, which is pretty funny. Artifact Lancia, you can stop the Dragon Link players or PK players from playing, and Adventurer cards, at least Water Enchantress. And then Forbidden Chalice also is able to hit Scythe while it's on the field, and it doesn't lose because it's not like Forbidden Droplet. You don't lose to Herald of the Arclight, but you do lose to other like just standard negation. But it is a pretty cool card, so I think that it's pretty nice to invest in. Moving on into the extra deck, we'll start with an Evil Zardolka and a Lagia, as well as a Tornado Dragon and a Abyss Dweller. These are just toolbox cards. I think 99% of the time we're probably going to be going into these 3 monsters, especially because the Dweller's pretty nice this format. It's actually really good against Print Kids. Same thing with like Dolka Lagia, they're just really good like matchup generic cards. Tornado Dragon might come up, we'll see, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It's just like the 15th card basically. If we had a better card we'd probably play, such as like Dugaras, but obviously we can't really fit that into our budget. So I think that these 4 are probably the best choices that we have available to us. Then the last one is a combo piece, which is Gallant Granite. Obviously you search the Nemesis Keystone in the combo with this, so you have access to it. It's actually pretty nice. We could eventually invest into a Nibiru, but obviously this is going to be the last time we buy stuff for this deck, so I think that the Gallant Granite searching the Nemesis Keystone is probably the farthest we're going to get with that. We also have 1 copy of Link Karibo and 1 copy of Secure Gardna, and as well as the Scrap Wyvern. These are just cards that come up during like the normal combos that you probably are going to play, at least as far as Link monsters go. I guess you can also throw Appaloosa into this, but we're going to be showing that later. So these are like the cards that you need the most access to as far as Links go. The rest of them are mostly just utility, so we have a Lambda, Penistag, a Phoenix, a Unicorn, and then obviously the Appaloosa, which can come up during the combo, but also comes up in other scenarios, so I guess we could technically throw that in that lump. But these are pretty generic, just like links that we will come across. Penistag has been the MVP for us like this entire series. Obviously just being able to punch like your own tokens that you give off a Lost World with your Conductor Tyranno is just so funny. Just dealing like 35 piercing, and if you give them 2 tokens and then you like punch them twice, maybe use like Lost World to save one of them, and then like Penistag attack for the last 1100 damage, which is game. So just stuff like that is just like really funny, and it comes up sometimes, so figured I'd mention it. And the last 2 cards in our extra deck, one of them comes up to actually shuffle Misc back, which is a Sci-Frame Lord Omega. You can actually put Misc back into the graveyard with this, which is really funny, so you get follow-up. It is cool, especially because it can rip a card out of the opponent's hand, so that is actually a pretty funny play that we can do. And then the last card is a Naturia Beast, because obviously you can summon this off of a Nemesis Keystone, and then using your Scrap Raptor, which is a tuner. That's going to go ahead and do it for the extra deck, so moving on into the last part of the deck profile, the side deck. So we obviously have the 3 copies of Token Collector we invested into, as well as the 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More that we invested into earlier on in this series. So glad we did, because this card's actually pretty expensive now. And it's also just a really good replacement for Forbidden Droplet without being as expensive. 3 copies of Twin Twisters. I guess to go along with this, we're also citing the 3rd copy of Cosmic, which is 2 of them are in the main deck, so we're citing the 3rd one in our side deck. And then we're also playing 3 copies of Swords of Concealing Light from the very beginning of the series. I thought this card was really funny, so we're keeping it in for now. I guess it's basically the 4th, 5th, and 6th copies of Dark Ruler No More in a really weird roundabout way. It's actually pretty funny. But I don't think that we're actually going to side this card at all, but it could come up and it could be pretty funny. And the last 2 cards are one-ofs as well to go along like with the Cosmic. It's the Lancia and the 3rd copy of Bell. Just depending on the matchup, we can side these in like over the other cards, like the other utility cards in the deck. But we might not need to. I don't know. We'll have to see as we play. Anyways, that's going to do it for the deck profile. It's pretty solid, honestly. I think that we might get pretty far with this. We'll have to see. Alright, so before we get into today's match, I do want to show you some basic combos with this deck. First, I wanted to show you Ovi Raptor plus Baby Ceratosaurus, which ends on an Appaloosa with 3 materials, plus any 2 of these cards that you wish. Most of the time, you're probably going to be going for Naturia Beast, as well as a rank 4 of your choice. I think that personally, in my opinion, you're probably going to want to be going for Dweller, but that could be obviously a different thing. But I think that this format, these 2 cards are probably going to be the best choice. So let's go ahead and get into the combo. And obviously this is like slightly Nibiru proof if you are able to work something out with that. So we're going to go ahead and show what we can do. So we're going to normal summon our Ovi Raptor and search for Miscellaneousaurus. This also works if you just open the Miscellaneousaurus with Baby, or obviously the Miss and the Ovi. But I think that this is obviously the best way to do it, or the most common way to do it, because these are both 3-ofs. Next, we're going to activate Miss, so our entire combo line is safe, at least for the dinosaur portion. And then we're going to use the second effect to summon a Archosaur from the deck. Then we're going to use Archosaur's effect to destroy a dinosaur from our field, and then search a double evolution pill. And then we're going to, on a new chain, use Baby Ceratosaurus' effect to summon a dinosaur from our deck, a level 4 or lower. We're going to be summoning another copy of Baby. Then we're going to use Ovi Raptor's effect to destroy the Baby, and then summon the next one, the other one from the graveyard. It's very important that you do summon the other one, otherwise your dinosaur will technically not get its trigger, because it won't be in the activation location. Then we're going to activate Baby's effect, and then here you're going to actually go for Scrap Raptor. And it doesn't really matter what zones you do here, honestly, because you're just going to be linking everything off, basically. So from here, you're going to be going ahead and using Scrap Raptor's effect, which will destroy a monster on your field. So in this case, we're going to be destroying Baby, and then we're going to go ahead and be able to normal summon a Scrap monster this turn. Then we're going to get Baby Ceratosaurus' effect, which is going to go ahead and grab us Petita Renodon from our deck. You could also go Baby Ceratosaurus, it doesn't honestly matter. And then from here, you're going to go ahead and link off the Archosaur for a Link Karibo. The reason I do this, it's technically not necessary, but the reason I do this is that if you do get stopped here by a Nibiru or something like that, then you're going to be fine because you're going to have the Evo Pill to follow it up with. Then we're going to link these 2 off into our Scrap Wyvern. And then we're going to go ahead and use, it's important to note here actually that you don't really have to use Link Karibo because Scrap Wyvern's a dragon, but like obviously it doesn't really matter probably. It's just nice to have the Scrap Wyvern like if you do get Nibiru there. Anyways, we're going to be using Scrap Wyvern's effect to summon back the Raptor from the grave, and then we're going to be destroying a card on our field, which we're going to be destroying Raptor. And then in a new chain we can trigger both effects, Scrap Wyvern Chainlink 1 and then Raptor Chainlink 2. Raptor's going to go ahead and search us a follow-up, which is going to be our Scrap Chimera. And we do have an extra normal summon of a Scrap monster this turn, so we have 2 forms of follow-up if we do get Nibiru'd right here. And then off of the Scrap Wyvern, we're going to go ahead and special summon a Scrap monster from our deck. So we are going to be summoning another copy of Scrap Raptor, and then we are going to be using the effect to destroy a card on the field, which is probably going to be our Petita Renodon. It is important to note here that if our opponent does have cards on the field, this Petite should just be Giant Rex, because then we can just use the effect to destroy a card on our opponent's field. Then we're going to use our Petite to get Giant Rex from our deck. So basically it just skips a step, depending on if your opponent has cards on the field or not. Then from here, you have a couple of options. If you do want to make your combo Nibiru proof, you probably should just immediately make Appaloosa here. If you are a little bit more risky and you really want to end on like a different board, it's kind of important to know that you have to like normal summon the Scrap Chimera here and then like link it off or seize it away or something like that, because it can't be used as synchro material except for the summon of a scrap monster. Also, it's not a dinosaur, it's a beast, so you technically can't use it for Dolka or Lagia. So you kind of have a weird workaround with this card, and that kind of like makes it a little bit awkward. But it's not like the biggest deal ever. Especially because what you can do here, if we're going towards the end board of Naturia Beast and Abyss Dweller, we're just going to go ahead and link off the Rex, the Wyvern, and then we can also just link off like the Raptor here, but honestly it doesn't really matter. You could also just link off the Ovi Raptor. And then make a 3 material Appaloosa, so you have 3 negates here in case if your opponent does have the Nibiru. And then from here, you could also... Actually, we don't want to do that. I'm sorry, that's a lie. We definitely don't want to do that play yet. So what we do want to do is we actually want to overlay here first. We want to overlay the Scrap Raptor plus the Rex probably, although I don't think it really matters because we're just going to get rid of everything anyways. And we're going to go into our Gallant Granite, and then use the effect detaching probably the Rex just in case, so that we have our Rival Pill Live that gets us a body. And we can go into our Nemesis Keystone, which we also have for follow-up, so these 3 cards. Then from here, we're going to link these off into an Appaloosa, which makes the rest of our combo safe. This is going to have 3 materials on it. And then we can basically play out of our hand for the rest of this combo, especially because we're like Nibiru proof like this entire time, so it's pretty nice. So now we can normal summon our Scrap Chimera and use the effect to get back the Scrap Raptor to the field. Then we can use the Nemesis Keystones effect to shuffle back this Miscellaneousaurus back into our deck, summon itself, and then we have a level 1 Earth monster and then a level 4 Earth Tuner, which we can synchro into our Naturia Beast. And then we have our double evolution pill, which we can activate here, banishing the Nemesis Keystone. And then we also want to banish this giant Rex, so we can get it back. And then we get to summon our Conductor Tyranno from the deck to our field. It's probably important to know that we should probably be playing these dudes in defense in case of Lightning Storm, although this can just negate Lightning Storm. And then we have Giant Rex's effect that brings itself back. I'm actually not sure if you need to activate Nemesis Keystone here. Looks like it's just during the end phase, so it's not a big deal if you don't have to activate it here. And then you overlay these 2 for any level or rank 4 that you want. In this case, we're going to be going for Abyss Dweller to make sure our opponent's pretty locked down. Then you go into the end phase and you're going to use your Nemesis Keystone effect to add itself back to hand. And at this point, you're going to be having, you know, a full board of interruptions. Your opponent can't use the grave, they can't use spells or monster effects. So we don't have a really good way to out like trap cards. But obviously, we're playing a combo deck, so we're going to obviously outpace our opponent if they're playing trap cards in general. So yeah, this is the end board. I guess if you did want to like do something instead of the trap cards, if you're playing against a trap matchup, you could go into Tornado Dragon here. Could be really cool. You also have probably some other options. Like if you wanted, you could also go for like a Lagia instead of the this dude, but you do have to play your combo slightly different. So yeah. The next combo, which is probably going to be the last combo I'm going to be showcasing, is Lost World plus Raptor. So I actually don't know this combo like fully, so we're going to just be randomly doing this off the top of my head because I didn't practice this. So let's go ahead and do it. We're going to normal summon Lost World, or sorry, activate Lost World, normal summon Raptor, and then use the effect of Lost World to give our opponent a token. And then we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Scrap Raptor to target a monster on the field and destroy it. We're going to destroy himself, and then we're going to get both of his effects here so we can normal summon a Scrap monster this turn, and we can also search for a Scrap monster out of our deck. So we're going to be searching for Scrap Chimera. Next, we're going to go ahead and normal summon our Scrap Chimera, use the effect to bring back Raptor, and then we're just going to link these 2 off into a Scrap Wyvern. From here, we're going to be using Scrap Wyvern's effect to bring back the Scrap Raptor and destroy it, and then we're going to get the new effect in another chain, which is going to go ahead and summon a Scrap monster from our deck. And then once we do, we can destroy a card on the field. So we're going to be destroying the token, which we're going to be saving with Lost World by destroying a dinosaur monster from our deck, which obviously is going to be Miscellaneousaurus. In this case, it could also be Fatigued, but if you're going second, you want to probably attack with your Ovi Raptor. Although you could just link it off, so you have like a couple of options here. So you go ahead and get your Ovi Raptor, and then we're going to go ahead and use Ovi Raptor's effect to search for Miscellaneousaurus. And then we can go ahead and activate our Miscellaneousaurus here. And then we probably have a couple options here, but I think the best option is just to go ahead and use our Miscellaneousaurus, banishing 2. Maybe we want to banish the baby. I don't think it really matters, honestly. I'm going to banish the baby instead of the raptor, and I think you're probably going to see why here in a second. Then we're going to get our copy of baby from the deck. And then we're going to go ahead and use, maybe it's better to actually do it the other way. Yeah, maybe it's better to keep the baby in the grave. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that. Then we're going to go ahead and use the Oviraptor effect to destroy the baby and then summon the baby back from the grave. Zones don't matter, but I think I want to keep this open for Conductor because of Penistag's effect. Same thing with this zone. But yeah, baby's effect is going to trigger here, and we're going to go ahead and summon Archosaur, which is going to pop the baby on the field. And then we're going to search for our double evolution pill. That's correct. And then baby's source's effect here is going to go ahead and summon the giant Rex. So I guess this could be Petite Pteranodon. It doesn't really matter because Petite would be here and it would have summoned this as well. So realistically, it doesn't matter if it's Petite or baby. And then from here, we're going to go ahead. We probably want to do like the full combo or something like that. So I think what we're going to do here is that we are going to probably keep the Archosaur so we can link it off later. So I think that we want to overlay the Rex and the Oviraptor. It also just depends on if you're going first or second, because obviously you can put a lot of pressure on if you are going second. You don't have to go into Gallant Granite, you can go into like Dolk or whatever just to push through hand traps and stuff like that, and then make like a Penistag and like push for game. But in this case, we're just going to go Gallant Granite, and we're going to detach the Rex, assuming that we're going first, grabbing Nemesis Keystone. Keystone's effect is going to target the Misc, shuffle it into the deck, and summon itself. Then we can link these dudes, which we probably should have done this first, into our Appaloosa, because those ones we're not going to be using for anything else. And then we can go ahead and turn these two into our Naturia Beast. We could also turn this into a Link Rebo to keep the Raptor on field. Like what we could do is if you don't want to make the Naturia Beast, you can just link off the Keystone for a Link Rebo on any of these zones. And then we can activate the Evo Pill, banishing this and the Rex. And then we can make a rank 4 instead, because we're going to get these two banished. We're going to have the Conductor Tyranno. And then we're going to get the Rex effect to summon back. And then we're going to overlay it with the Raptor for any rank 4 that we want, which would probably be laggy in this case because we already have the monster negates. Although you could obviously go for the Dweller. But if you wanted to go for the Naturia Beast instead, you just wouldn't have the Link Rebo. You would have this, and you would have this. So this would be your end board if you wanted the Naturia Beast. But you have to pick between one of these 4 monsters, obviously, just depending on what you wanted to do with your hand. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then obviously during the end phase, you get this dude back, which he can actually put back the Scrap Raptor, funny enough, on the next turn, or probably Miscellaneousaurus if you're able to get access into another dinosaur. But yeah, so that's the combo for that. It's not nearly as good, obviously, because you don't have another like Synchro or rank 4 dude on the field, but it is still pretty solid. So for our one and only match today, we are up against Theo, my cousin, and he is on Paleozoic Frog. So he starts his turn by setting a monster face down and setting a card face down. And I obviously know that he's probably playing Paleo Frog, so I'm expecting this to be a dupe frog and then just some other random background. So I start my turn by activating Foolish Bureau Goods and then sending these Rouse End to the graveyard. which I said is obviously not in the list anymore, but is in the list just for this video. So we have a activation of Lost World and then a special summon of Pankratops here. Then I can trigger the Lost World's effect to give him a token, and then I believe I go into, actually I think I normal summon Giant Rex here, yep. And then I can move into battle phase, and the attack order kind of matters here. I feel like I kind of misplayed, but I go Pankratops attacks into the token, and then I use Lost World to protect, sending Baby, which Baby triggers to summon Ovi, and Ovi searches Miss. And the reason I do it this way is because on the resolution, I'm going to activate Pankratops' effect, tributing itself and targeting the back row. Or actually, in this case, I go Survival's End, target the back row, targeting Pankratops, and then I chain the Pankratops, targeting the face-down monster. And then the monster gets destroyed, which is Dupe Frog, and Dupe Frog misses timing because it was destroyed as Chain Link 2, which is a little unfortunate, so he doesn't get the draw. And I do misplay here. I think I go main phase 2, and I use Ovi Raptor to pop the token, and then I summon the Pankratops back from the graveyard. And then I can just make any rank 4 from here, and I'm pretty sure that he just scoops here. His hand was pretty bad, especially because I had the Miss in hand as well. But I really should have just discarded Miss and then summoned Baby, and I could have comboed further. But moving into game number 2 here, he normal summons Swap Frog, and then I use a Gamma. It gets destroyed, and I summon the driver from deck. And then I believe that he just sets 2 monsters and passes, so my Cyframes get banished. Then on my turn, I activate Foolish Burial Goods, which sends Survival's End to the grave. I activate Lost World, and then I can go ahead and normal summon a Baby Source here, and then I believe that I use Lost World to give him a token, and then I use Survival's End to target the Baby and target a back row, destroy both of them. I target the back row under the token, which he chains, which is, unfortunately for me, a really spicy tech, which is DD Grounds, and yeah, that basically means my Baby is banished, and it really sucks, so I basically just have to pass because that was my only play. So he has the token, he can link it off for a Link Karibo and pass his turn. He can't attack with it, I mean he could, but it would just be 0 damage because of Lost World. Then on my turn, I have a Scrap Raptor, which I can use the effect and hopefully start my Scrap Engine, but he also has another copy of DD Grounds. He also has a token on his field, which he can use for Nightmare Phoenix, which is pretty funny. In the end phase, he uses Morella, which sends Rise to Full Height to the grave, and then he draws for a turn. From here, he can just make a Phoenix, and then I believe he just discards to destroy the Lost World, which is pretty good because it buffs the Phoenix as well here, because normally it'd be 1400 attack, but because he's discarding something, it's going to actually just be 1900, the original attack of it. And then from here, it's basically just Phoenix beatdown, so he's going to go ahead and go into battle phase and hit me for 1900, and then set a card and pass his turn. I draw for turn, I draw the Lost World again, so it's just a free activation here. At the very least, it reduces the Phoenix's attack, and I normal summon Giant Rex, and I attempt to use Lost World's effect here, which on the normal summon he just activates Judgment, and so yeah, at the cost of half his life points, I can't play, which is a pretty decent deal for him. So I believe I just pass here. I can't do anything. He draws for turn. And I believe that the next couple of turns are basically the same. He draws for turn, sets a card, attacks with Phoenix, and passes. I draw for turn and draw nothing. I have to pass. He draws for turn, sets a card, attacks with Phoenix for 14. I draw a card. Nothing. I pass. He draws for turn, sets a card, attacks for Phoenix for 14. And yeah, so we're down to just 1900 life points here, and hopefully this draw is something good. You draw for turn. We have double evolution pills, so we can banish a Cyframe Gamma from our hand and the Giant Rex in the graveyard that's just been chilling there, which is pretty nice because now we can get a Conductor Tyranno, which also allows us to trigger Lost World and Giant Rex's effect here to give him a token, as well as our Giant Rex gets summoned back here. So we're gonna have a pretty nice Giant Rex. I don't think it has any, I think it'll actually have 2600 attack from Baby and Scrap Raptor, and maybe there's something else I can't exactly see. But yeah, we get the Giant Rex back to the field. he chains Canadia to the activation of Lost World, otherwise he can target anything because of the token. So he flips my Conductor Tyranno face down, which is pretty good. I go into battle phase and I use Giant Rex to attack the token, and then Lost World to protect, sending Baby Ceratosaurus, which summons Ovi Raptor, and then I use Ovi Raptor's effect to search here, which he chains Mistake. So I have to resolve the Ovi Raptor here, and then he also gets a summon from the graveyard from a Paleo. So he summons a Canadia, or a Marilla, I guess. So he got 2 Paleos off of that. And then I have to send a Miscellaneousaurus off of the Oviraptor effect. It's probably the best card in my deck, especially because I've already kind of ran through some of my Scrap Engine and some of my my Giant Rex and stuff like that. So yeah, I use the Giant Rex, or I think it was actually the Oviraptor, to attack over one of the Paleos so he can't get a Toad access. And then during main phase 2, I use Miscellaneousaurus to get me into Minotaur Archosaur, which is kind of an iffy play because I can't search for Pill because of Mistake, but I can go into Link Repo, and then I can link off into Phoenix and pop the Mistake and draw a card. But on the 5th summon, he activates Nibiru, so pretty rough there. Tributes the whole field. I believe the token has like 1700 defense, and then it loses 500 because of Lost World. And then I pass turn, and then he goes into his turn and he uses Dynamiscus, which banishes the field spell. He summons a token back to the field, and then he goes into battle and uses the Nibiru to attack over the Nibiru token. And then in main phase 2, he can summon Toad. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get over my Conductor Tyranno. He could have got a Cerberus line, but he had no other cards in hand, so he couldn't discard, so like it would have been a really risky play. So yeah, I draw for turn, and in draw phase, I use Chalice, which he ends up negating, and then he takes the Chalice to his field. Which is honestly fine by me. I just didn't want him to get access into the Dupe Frog, because then he could start an engine pretty nicely. Because if he goes standby phase and then I activate Chalice and then he chains Toad, he's going to get the Dupe Frog either way. So the draw phase line is better. So I activate Evo Pill, and then I banish the Rex, summon the Rex, and then I also I actually top deck the Conductor. I don't activate Evo Pill, my bad. I flip summon the Rex, and I seemingly am going to attack for game, but he has a Rise to Full Height Engrave, which he can banish and target the Nibiru. So he's only taking 500 damage, and I can't attack for the rest of the turn. I pass to him, and he has Swap Frog from the Toad's effect, which he can normal summon and send a Ronin Toad into grave. But unfortunately, it's not going to be enough. And funnily enough, I think that the Chalice play really mattered here, because he would have had like a Dupe Frog on field as well, which would have been really good. So yeah, I definitely played it properly. Then on my turn, he just activates a Chalice and targets one of my Conductors, which is fine. He sets a back row on his turn, and it has to be exactly Paleozoic Morella. So I go into battle phase, and I'm like, okay, attack for 39 and hope it's enough. And the last card is a Solemn Judgment, and so we're able to take this one. It would have been really funny if I did like link off into like Phoenix and then into Unicorn, and then he would have just, you know, negated the summon. It would have been really funny, which I do mention here, but we obviously do take the game here. So pretty good. Shout out to Theo for playing with me, and it was a lot of fun. So really appreciate it, man. Before we do the recap of today's episode, I do want to mention that we do play 2 other games that aren't included in this video that I will be uploading on an unlisted video on this channel. So it should be in the description below, so you can click that and watch the unlisted video. So from here on out, I will be doing spoilers for that. It's just really minor spoilers, but if you wanted to watch that, I would recommend pausing the video right now, going and clicking that and watching that. But from here on out, there are spoilers. So today we ended up playing 4 games today, 1 match in total. I'm just counting it as 1 match, even though it could count as 2. But we won 3 of those and lost 1 game. So our record today is 3-1. It's realistically like 1-0 if you're counting matches, but I'm counting games today, which is a little different from normal. But our overall record is 25 wins and 14 losses. So we have a pretty good record. And in next week's video, we're going to be going and playing in an OTS championship, and we're gonna see how well we do, and hopefully we can get a top and earn our invite. Obviously, since regionals are out, I think the OTS championship is a really good way to end this series. So I will see you guys next Friday for another video.